moment you stop reacting, you become untouchable.
The moment anger rises, it feels justified. It feels earned. Someone spoke carelessly. Someone disrespected you. Something didn't go your way. And in that moment, your mind whispers that reaction is power. But Stoicism begins by challenging that lie. It asks you to pause and notice something uncomfortable. The event itself did not disturb you. What disturbed you was your judgment about it. This is where the work begins, not with suppressing emotion, not with pretending you are calm, but with understanding the mechanics of your inner world. You live in an age of constant provocation. Opinions are loud. Expectations are endless. People are careless with words. If your peace depends on their behavior, you will never be free. Stoicism does not promise a world without irritation. It promises something far more valuable, a mind that cannot be hijacked. The discipline you are about to cultivate is not about becoming cold or indifferent. It is about becoming unshakable. When you no longer hand your emotional state to others, you reclaim sovereignty over your life. This path demands honesty. You must be willing to see how often you give power away without realizing it. Anger is rarely about strength. More often, it is about wounded pride, unmet expectations, and unconscious habits of thought. The Stoics understood this deeply. They did not ask, "How do I stop feeling?" They asked, "What am I believing that makes this feeling inevitable?" The answer to that question is the key to never being bothered again. At the core of Stoic discipline lies a simple but radical distinction: what is within your control and what is not. Your thoughts, judgments, intentions, and actions belong to you. Other people's opinions, behaviors, moods, and choices do not. Most anger is born when you confuse the two. You demand that reality obey your preferences. You expect people to act with your standards, your awareness, your values. When they don't, you feel wronged. But Stoicism teaches that this expectation is the original mistake. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he would encounter selfishness, ignorance, and rudeness, not as an exception, but as the rule. By anticipating imperfection, he robbed it of its power to shock him. This is not pessimism, it is clarity. When you stop being surprised by human behavior, you stop being emotionally enslaved by it. The disciplined mind does not say, "This shouldn't be happening," it says, "This is happening." What is the most rational response? Anger feels like action, but it is usually a loss of control disguised as intensity. The Stoic response is quieter, slower, and far more effective. It begins with restraint, not because you are weak, but because you understand that reacting impulsively is the easiest thing in the world. Anyone can lose control. Mastery belongs to those who can pause. That pause is not empty. It is filled with awareness. In that space, you decide who you will be, regardless of what others do. Self-control is not something you summon in emergencies. It is something you train daily. The Stoics treated the mind like a muscle. Left unattended, it weakens. Trained consistently, it becomes resilient. You do not wake up one day immune to anger. You build that immunity through repeated acts of discipline in small moments. When you feel irritation rising, that is your training ground. Instead of indulging the story your mind tells, you question it. Is this truly an insult, or is it my pride interpreting it as one? Is this situation unbearable, or merely uncomfortable? Epictetus taught that people are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. This is not philosophy for comfort. It is philosophy for power. When you realize that your emotional reactions are learned patterns, you also realize they can be unlearned. This requires brutal self-honesty. It requires you to admit that much of your anger is habitual, not necessary. You react because you always have. Stoicism invites you to interrupt that cycle, to see the urge to react as a signal, not a command. Each time you choose restraint, you weaken the habit of anger. Each time you choose reflection over reaction, you strengthen your character. Over time, What once felt like effort becomes your natural state. Calm is no longer something you chase. It is something you inhabit. One of the most liberating Stoic insights is that being unbothered does not mean being passive. It means choosing your battles with intention. The undisciplined mind reacts to everything. The disciplined mind responds only when it aligns with its values. Ask yourself how much energy you waste on trivial offenses, a careless comment, a stranger's opinion, a perceived slight. None of these deserve dominion over your inner state. When you allow them to disturb you, you are paying a high price for something of little value. Seneca warned that life is long enough if you know how to use it, but short if you waste it in emotional turmoil. Anger consumes time, clarity, and dignity. It narrows your vision. It makes you predictable. When others know how to provoke you, they control you. True power is being unreachable by petty disturbances. This does not mean you tolerate injustice or abandon boundaries. It means you act from principle, not from impulse. When you speak, you do so deliberately. When you remain silent, it is a choice, not a retreat. Stoicism teaches that silence, when chosen consciously, is often the strongest response. Not every provocation requires a reply. Not every insult requires defense. Your worth does not increase when you prove others wrong. It increases when you refuse to let their ignorance dictate your peace. Personal growth, in the Stoic sense, is inseparable from self-awareness. You cannot master what you do not observe. This is why the Stoics practice daily reflection. They examine their reactions, not to condemn themselves, but to learn. At the end of the day, ask yourself where you lost your composure and why. What belief was operating beneath that reaction? Perhaps you believed you needed validation. Perhaps you believed respect must always be expressed in a certain way. These beliefs often operate invisibly, yet they shape your emotional life. Bringing them into awareness weakens their hold. Over time, you begin to see anger forming before it fully arrives. You catch it in its early stages, when it is still malleable. This is the moment of choice. You can feed it with stories of injustice, or you can starve it with reason. Reason, for the Stoics, was not cold logic divorced from life. It was alignment with reality. Reality includes flawed people, imperfect systems, and unpredictable events. When you accept this fully, anger loses its fuel. You stop demanding that life conform to your preferences. Instead, you focus on shaping your response. This shift is subtle but profound. It moves you from victimhood to agency. You are no longer at the mercy of circumstances. You are accountable for your inner state. Discipline is often misunderstood as rigidity. In Stoicism, it is flexibility rooted in principle. The disciplined mind adapts without breaking. It bends without losing form. When someone tries to provoke you, you do not meet their chaos with your own. You remain centered. This composure is not accidental. It is the result of repeated choices to prioritize long-term character over short-term emotional release. Ask yourself what anger truly gives you. A momentary sense of righteousness, a fleeting feeling of dominance, and then what remains? Regret, damaged relationships, lost clarity. The Stoics were ruthless in this cost-benefit analysis. If an emotion does not serve virtue, it is to be examined and restrained. This does not mean you become numb. It means you become selective. You feel deeply, but you act wisely. You allow emotions to arise, but you do not allow them to rule. This distinction is crucial. Suppression creates pressure. Awareness creates freedom. When you observe anger without immediately identifying with it, it loses its urgency. It becomes just another mental event passing through consciousness. You are no longer the anger. You are the one who notices it. Modern life constantly tempts you to react. Notifications, arguments, outrage cycles. Everything is designed to pull you out of yourself. Stoicism offers a countercultural discipline, withdrawal inward, not as escape, but as grounding. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you always have the option of retreating into yourself, because nowhere is more peaceful than the mind disciplined by reason. This inner refuge is not built overnight. It is constructed through daily practices of attention and restraint. When you limit unnecessary exposure to provocation, you protect your mental resources. When you choose what deserves your attention, you regain control of your emotional economy. Being unbothered is not about apathy. It is about focus. You invest your energy where it matters, in your actions, your values, your growth. Other people's noise fades into the background. Their behavior becomes information, not a threat. This shift transforms how you move through the world. You listen more. You speak less. You react rarely. And when you do act, it is precise and grounded. Self-development, in the Stoic tradition, is a lifelong commitment. There is no final state of invulnerability. There is only continuous refinement. You will still feel irritation. You will still encounter moments of anger. The difference is that these moments no longer define you. They become opportunities to practice. Each challenge is a test of alignment. Are you living according to your principles or according to your impulses? The Stoics did not seek comfort. They sought strength. Strength for them was the ability to remain virtuous under pressure, to act with integrity when it would be easier to lash out, to remain calm when chaos invites participation. This strength is quiet. It does not announce itself. It is visible in consistency, not in spectacle. When you embody this discipline, people notice, not because you demand respect, but because you no longer chase it. Your presence becomes steady. Your reactions become measured. Over time, fewer things bother you, not because the world has changed, but because you have. To never get angry or bothered is not to become invincible to emotion. It is to become intimate with your mind, to know its patterns, its triggers, its illusions. Stoicism gives you the tools, but you must do the work. This work is internal, often invisible, and deeply rewarding. As you practice, you will notice a shift. Situations that once consumed you now pass without friction. Words that once stung now fall flat. You realize that your peace was never dependent on others. It was always yours to cultivate. This realization is both humbling and empowering. It removes excuses. It places responsibility squarely where it belongs, in your hands. The Stoic path does not promise an easy life. It promises a free one, free from the tyranny of impulse, free from the endless need for validation, free from being emotionally controlled by anyone or anything. This freedom is built moment by moment, choice by choice. And once you taste it, you will understand why the Stoics valued it above all else.